And I think there's a snobbishness with reading books. They are a bit outdated. They're a little bit like playing the spoons and tap dancing and the theatre. They were good once, but things have moved on.
The head's not quite on the right place. That's his little issue that he's got to work on for the moment.
My apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Look, I'm all for innovation, and I advocated putting a scrum half in the line out. It sounds great, but it's bollocks idea, really.
Hello and welcome to Under the Sticks, a podcast brought to you by Pro14 Rugby, where we attempt to deliver half-baked opinions served up as authoritative rugby analysis. My name is Andy McGeady, and we are going out live on all the Pro14's social channels tonight. So wherever you're tuning in from, either now or later, hello. Some of the regulars are here early. Harley Worthy. I cannot speak Welsh, Harley, but I'm sure Sean can help.
It translates as Happy St. David's Day, which is why I'm wearing my daffodil.
You are. This is so lovely. It's very okay. Michael Jenkins, hi from Pembrokeshire, West Wales. Rugby Mum Glasgow, hello from Glasgow. I'm sorry for your troubles right now, Glasgow. Ollie Hughes, hello. Reese Andrews, 3 minutes late. We are, but it is St. David's Day. We have not got Paul Williams. We have Paul Eddison today. How are you?
Hey guys, yeah, very well, thank you.
Welcome, Paul. At last, a Paul with a bit of sense on the pod.
I'll do my best.
We will see. The bullying of Williams goes on, even though he's not here. Sean Holley, how are you?
I'm okay, mate. Thanks. I'm a bit tired because it's been a hectic weekend. Went over to Ulster Ospreys, went to Heathrow to Belfast, did the game, rushed back, got kick-off, had TV, a lot of viewing, a lot of rugby. It's been great, but I've just caught up with me a little bit today.
We will have more people joining us during the show. We'll have Simon Thomas in to talk about something which one of our commenters is already asking about. So we'll get to that. Thomas Payne, we're going to get to that very, very shortly. We'll be talking about Six Nations rugby. 2 games of 3 were played. We'll be talking about those 2 games. We'll be talking about the game that wasn't played and the reasons why that is getting even more messy. That's one of the reasons, Mr. Eddison, why you're here, to shed some light and illuminate. We will be talking about some of the Guinness PRO14 action from the weekend. There was some big results and a couple of big talking points over the weekend. Not just one of the greatest commentators' curses ever seen done by Mr. Sean Holley in person, which was awesome, and I'm not letting him forget about it. We will be touching on the Loch Lomond Whiskies Coach of the Month for February. We'll get to the nominees later on, and we'll touch on all of the different things that I hope you put into the comments tonight. Simon Thomas, I believe you're going to join us right about now. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. I have Paul Eddison and Sean Holley here. And Simon, you were at your first press conference in quite a long time.
I know, today. It's amazing. I felt like a real journalist again for the first time in a year. It's for those who don't know, I've been kind of shielding for various health reasons, too boring to go into, but I've had a couple of jabs now of the old vaccine, so I felt okay to go. So down to the Arms Park, and it was quite an eventful day's reporting. And Sean was there in the morning when we had a bit of a briefing of Richard Holland, the Blues chief executive, and then following that in the afternoon, after the official announcement of the change, the rebranding, we had a full press conference with Richard and Alan Jones, the chairman of Cardiff Rugby, as we know from August the 1st we'll be calling them. So yeah, it's been really interesting, a very eventful day.
Yeah, it's funny because we had a segment a while back, because it's something that flows into the strange and wonderful world of Welsh rugby Twitter, the Cardiff Ultras versus the Cardiff Blues Massive, right? And it's something from outside Wales sometimes we don't get. So Paul Williams and Sean Holley had a good explanation segment to us, but now it's really interesting that after, close on 2 decades, they've decided to drop the Blues and go with something different. And the promo, a lot of it today was really focused Simon, on the history of Cardiff and making that link again.
Yeah, well, the Cardiff Club was formed in 1876. It's been a fascinating 18 years, as it is, really. I mean, Sean was very much at the business end of it when the Ospreys were formed in the same year as an amalgam of Swansea and Neath. Whoever saw that coming 25 years ago, you would never have believed it. So strange things have happened. Just for background information, Cardiff Blues, along with Llanelli Scarlets, as they were then, paid for standalone status to remain essentially, as they were. Largely club sides paid £1 million for that right. Became more complicated with Cardiff Blues because then the year afterwards, the Celtic Warriors, which was originally a merger of Pontypridd and Bridgend, that folded, and that area geographically was divided up in terms of the development pathway responsibilities. The Ospreys were given the kind of Bridgend area to look after, and Cardiff Blues were given the Valleys area, with the Rhondda Valley, Cumnor Valley, Merthyr Valley. So it became a lot more complex, and as such, Cardiff Blues in a way inherited that area geographically from a pathway responsibility. The confusion, I guess, has always been, were they running a development pathway or were they representing that region? I think if you look at the Ospreys, I don't know if Sean would agree with this. I mean, the Ospreys, I think, did make a big effort to be seen as embracing the whole of their geographic area. I think inevitably the fact that Cardiff retained the Cardiff name, that sent out a message pretty early on. And as I say, they weren't in 2003 aware that they were going to inherit the Valleys. So it became very complicated. Essentially, the Valley supporters haven't really sort of flocked to the Arms Park. I think it's fair to say that. Richard Holland today came up with a figure. Only 5% of Cardiff Blues supporters come from that north area of the Cardiff Blues area, which should be the Pontypridd and Rhondda areas, whereas 78% come from the Cardiff and the Vale, and actually 17% come from outside the area altogether, So I think there's been a realization that their hardcore support, their week in, week out support essentially comes from the Cardiff area. And what those, customers and what the sponsors wanted was to see more of a focus on the Cardiff heritage and tradition. And that's what's happening. I suppose, as Sean will know himself, there's been this whole issue of when people are commentating on them, do you call them Cardiff? Do you call them Blues? Well, I suppose by doing away with the name Blues, it makes it a lot simpler, doesn't it? It's going to be Cardiff on.
Little bit. Mr. Holley, so this is a long time coming, right? And when I say a long time coming, that probably seems a little flippant outside. But again, I'm coming from a place of beautiful ignorance when it comes to some of the intricacies of this. And you were around, as Simon said, right at the start of this.
Yeah, look, there's lots to this. I totally understand where Cardiff are coming from on this. If you look at the trophy cabinet, Cardiff Blues haven't been successful. Never won the Pro 12, Pro 14. Won a European Challenge Cup and an EDF. Okay, but in a domestic competition, never been successful. So there's that argument. The harp back to the historical element, I think, is important because of the name around the world and so on. And then the statistics around the fan base, is obviously very commercially important. On the flip side of that, Simon's right. I was involved right at the coalface. It's my home here. I live in Port Talbot, right in the middle of Osprey land. Neath and Swansea coming together, ostracised, many fans, supporters, players, court administrators, ruined families. But, it was a lot of hard work and heartache there. And then Simon mentioned there the Celtic Warriors. That was very hard to go through. We had to pick up some of the pieces of that and did so very well, in my opinion, and worked very hard over the last 18 years, everybody involved, to get a brand out there. Now, the flip side that I'm talking about is, imagine how those Celtic Warriors fans are feeling today, having all that heartache, that new team that they got behind and then ripped apart. And imagine how Pontypridd supporters are feeling today. They've obviously voted in their numbers in the last 18 years by not attending, not buying season tickets and so on. And I think there's going to be a lot of hurt out there. That, Cardiff Rugby won't worry too much about that because they will say they have tried. And they have tried, it's just about moving on now. It is what it is. Richard Holland mentioned today Bristol Bears. It's a slightly different thing from me, Bristol Bears, because I think you can see where Bristol are going. They are going to win things. At the moment, the problem for Cardiff Rugby is, where are they going? Are they going to challenge? Are they going to win things? Because that's the only thing that will really make this ever go away. You know, the Ospreys, Simon, have been successful. Not in the last 8 to 9 years, but they've put silverware in there. They've forged the region. There's a generation of young players and fans and families that only now identify with Ospreys rugby. One of my questions today to Richard was, what about that group of people that only have ever known Cardiff Blues in 18 years? You know, what happens to them? They don't know who Gareth Edwards and Gerald Davis was. You know, so there's lots to it, but I get it. I understand it.
It was interesting, Sean, today at the press conference. I said to Richard Holland, there will be people out there who will say, well, this isn't very regional, what you're doing now. So I said, well, what are you? Are you a club or are you a region? And Richard's response was, we're a club with regional responsibilities. So, you know, that's where we are. I mean, in practical terms, that is true, because they are a side based in Cardiff at the Arms Park. They're called Cardiff, and they have a wider geographic area where they run a development pathway under 16s and as you did at the Ospreys all those years. So they do have that responsibility. And if you look at the Cardiff Blues team, Sean, there's loads of guys who've come from the Valleys area, around the Ponty area as well.
That's the issue, Simon.
Area.
That's the issue. If what do you want to be, isn't it? What do you want to say on the tin? If you want to be a regional entity, get players from all around the region, truly buy into the spirit of and the development of, you drop the Cardiff. This was my argument with Paul Williams. You'd drop the Cardiff and become the Blues.
Well, can I ask a question? Because all I'm hearing right now is, I hear a lot of what we're getting rid of, right? We're getting rid of the Blues name. We're getting rid of potentially that more explicit attempt to be regional as opposed to a club with a regional responsibility, right? But how does this move lead to something better? There is value in reattaching with the historical sort of blue and black element to this. But how does this lead to something that looks like a greater day?
I mean, I think in terms of the support, I don't see them losing many supporters, because we've gone through the figures and explained where the current support comes from. So there won't be a hemorrhaging there. That will stay pretty much the same. In terms of the player development, the same systems will be in place. You'll have the same hub officers, the same development officers, the same schools officers doing the same things as they are now. So you would hope that the talent would come through in the same way. So that's a status quo. So where will there be an improvement? I suppose you might think possibly from a commercial point of view. Richard Holland talked about this today, in that there's a feeling that the Cardiff brand, not just the club, but maybe the city as a whole, the capital city, is something very marketable. And by focusing more on that name, losing the Blues name, they can sell the connection with Cardiff. They talk about global companies they try to bring on board. Whether that'll be a success or not, but so that's a potential gain. I suppose the bottom line is they don't see themselves losing anything, either in players coming through or fans. And what they're doing is they're responding to the wishes of their supporters, their paying customers and their sponsors, which I guess makes sense.
I think Simon's nailed it there. And that is it. You know, for all the arguments that are going to come out, they've done the figures, they've done their homework. It's been 18 years. We're not going to get any more fans from outside of Cardiff. We may get a few more people from inside of Cardiff, which is a plus. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. We're now going commercial on this and selling our city and linking our heritage to that. And, you know, if they've done their homework and due diligence, then good luck to them. You know, all I need to know is, do I call them Cardiff or Blues? I call them Blues until the end of the season, or I can call them Cardiff from now and Cardiff after that on my TV work. Simple as that.
It was interesting. Alan Jones, the chairman, made one point, Sean. He said, to me, this is about being honest about what we are.
There you go. And he's a great bloke, isn't he, Simon? He's a real good bloke, Alan.
Clever bloke. Clever man.
A clever bloke, a genuine bloke, and a great person to have on your board. So,
yeah, do you know what, Sean? And your TV work, you'll call them what you're paid to call them, my friend, and you'll like it. That's how this works, right?
Oh, dear.
Simon Thomas from WalesOnline, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm just scanning the comments. A lot of people really enjoyed that background because they mightn't have heard it before. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, speaking of things that have potentially split families, the refereeing of Pascal goes there. We're just going to go straight into it, because Wales versus England was great. It was a really enjoyable game to watch. I'm really glad I've got a split panel with me today because this could get spicy. First of all, Paul, because you were like me sitting on the edge of that last topic, what did you think of the game?
I thought it was a really good game. Very interesting. I was watching on an iPad on a slight delay, so I just kept on getting WhatsApp messages saying, "What the hell's going on? I've no idea what the law is in this situation. What's this? Wow!" I was like, "Okay, something's coming up." I'd heard about Farrell meltdown and other things, but really enjoyable. Very, very close for long periods. I was fairly confident England would win at half time. I was even more confident after an hour, and they ended up getting beaten quite comfortably. So no, unpredictable and enjoyable, and yes, with no little controversy.
Sean hasn't changed his "I'm going to kill you" expression since Andy's last comment. I prefer to think that his broadband is kind of just jammed for a minute. That's what I choose to believe, and I'm sticking to it. But Sean, as an absolute non-neutral, what did you think of Wales versus England?
Well, I really enjoyed it, obviously, because the Six Nations throws up these sort of incidents that you think, well, I've seen it all now, haven't I? But it raises other things, and it was quite amazing how it unfolded. I sort of couldn't believe what I was seeing, but then I'm experienced enough in games to know, well, I'm not really that surprised. And then obviously I've trawled back over it for TV and stuff, and my conclusions still remain pretty much in my coaching mentality. If you saw me on TV last night, I probably came across a little bit like that, as if I was in a player's review. Is that, don't turn your back on any team, let alone an international team. Particularly, Dan Biggar kicked that ball across to Josh Adams with Pascal Gauze, the referee, 2 years ago in the same fixture, pre-World Cup. Yeah. And exactly the same. If you are not doing your homework on that, quite frankly, it's arrogance or complacency or laziness. And Elliot Daly turning his back on Kieran Hardy. He probably didn't know. Go and watch Kieran Hardy. He taps and goes. Don't turn your back and jog back. And so I understand the knock-on one, right? I understand that, and it's not Wales's fault. If anything, Liam Williams reacted the quickest, and Falatau maybe could have reacted to another one that was punched out of his hand. But they're all ifs and buts. Wales were on it, and you have to be at that level. Forget the referee, and you still got to respect the referee and focus. You lose your focus and get put off by things like that, and you get bitten in the backside. And take 2 tries away anyway, and Wales still would have won.
Ollie Hughes in the comments. Pascal Gauze refereed the game really well to the new interpretation, which was overshadowed by 2 controversial decisions. There were a lot of penalties, Paul, especially around the breakdown area. The number of penalties England conceded in that game, particularly Maro Itoje through the championship, might be getting to be a cause of concern for Eddie.
Yeah, I think he's now at 10 in the championship, and no one else is even. I think 6 is the next most. That's too many. I mean, Alan Wynne-Jones, I think, got pinged 4 times in Scotland, and I thought you just can't possibly get penalised that much in a single game as a player. And then Maro managed to top it. So it is definitely a problem. I know that when he first broke through, people kind of got the feeling that he was getting away with stuff. It's maybe gone the other way, although I didn't think any of the calls were particularly harsh. Maybe the Maul penalty where he was kind of on the wrong side but didn't seem to interfere, which Sheedy then kicked to make it 27-24. Sometimes you get away with that, but then again, when you've already conceded 4 penalties, you don't really necessarily deserve the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, I mean, they conceded that same penalty 3 times in the match.
That's the problem,
twice.
That's the problem. They can't throw your jumper into the line and leave him there. I mean, it is a cast iron penalty, and the replacement came on, did exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I've thought that. I mean, that's been a problem for England all the way through their discipline. It was a problem at times last year, and And that, I mean, as much as yes, they can have some gripes about those 2 tries, although as considering they didn't learn that from the first one when Hardy scored, then they can't complain too much about that. But they've got bigger issues to worry about than those tries. I think they would have only been glossing over if they'd have managed to escape with the win, because their discipline is going to kill them against any good teams.
Can I ask you a question, right? Honest question, because when I coached, I felt my team was a reflection of me and the coaching team. That's what I felt in how they played, how they behaved, their values, their culture, their discipline. Is this England team a reflection of Eddie Jones?
I think to some extent it has to be. He's such a powerful voice, and I think there's been quite a lot said about there's been a constant kind of churn of the coaches alongside him, and I think losing Scott Wisemantel after the World Cup, I think probably hurt them a bit. I think he was kind of the yin to Eddie's yang in terms of being able to offer a slightly calmer side, and I think Eddie's so dominating, and Simon Amor coming in from the 7 setup has probably not got the same gravitas within the squad, so that probably hurts on the coaching side of things. So I think that does hurt them. Eddie's obviously first to take responsibility for every defeat. I mean, he always says our preparation wasn't good enough or whatever.
Got to coach better, mate.
Yeah, exactly. But the discipline, that's got to be something they've got to be looking at now. I know Matt Dawson was speaking about leadership on the field to resolve it, because it is something you can't be making those mistakes time and time again. And having got back into the game, they conceded 4 penalties in 8 minutes, and they were suddenly out of it again. And
it was extraordinary. When you look at the, you can get sort of chains of possession. You can also get chains of ill discipline. And it's funny, you bring up leadership there, and there's different kinds of leadership in a game. There's a leadership which involves perhaps stuff we don't see, but it's the quiet words. It's gathering people together in those little moments between plays and laying down the law with your team that said, we do not do that thing again. There's also another type of leadership, which is with the officials. And on this one, Owen Farrell is failing spectacularly right now. He did it with Mike Adamson earlier on in the championship. He did it again with Pascal Gauzier. If you go at a referee like that, those 50-50s, even if they are 50-50s, they ain't going your way. And I think we have reached problem stage for a fantastic rugby player. You know, I think they really have to sit down and say, look, if you're going to be the long-term captain here, this can't happen, Sean. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that.
I think you've got to look at it, right? The captaincy isn't suiting him because he's not playing well. I mean, he looks a shadow of the player. They don't know whether to play him 10 or 12. They feel like they can't play without him. Why? Because they've made him captain. So who do you make captain then? Let's take that responsibility off him. Give us the armband, Owen. Just concentrate on your playing. Should we give it to a Toji? You can't give it to him. He's a liability. They talk about Lions captain. I mean, come on. You know, people throw away these things and, you know, get real. These people who haven't been in rugby environments. So who'd you go to then? Ben Young? Tom
Curry was the name that jumps into my head.
Curry's the type of guy for me who wears his heart on the sleeve, but does it the right way. He did give one technical penalty away, but he was just trying to win a race. I get that one. That's not a stupid penalty, right? But I like his heart. I like his values. You know, I do like Curry, and he'll get in the team. There you go. And he's in the team, so he's a candidate.
Yeah.
Can I bring in one? Sorry, you go, Paul.
Well, I saw someone's mentioned Saracens, and I think that is certainly something that's worth bearing in mind. I mean, it's been talked about a lot with Billy Vunipola needing game time, but you look at basically all of them. Farrell has looked out of sorts, and maybe it's the captaincy, but also barely playing, can't help. Jamie George doesn't look quite as good, and he would have been another captain option, but you also look at Cowan Dickey playing well, and maybe he's not quite as nailed on as he was. Mako I thought was pretty good, but the Sarries players aren't playing as well. And obviously Daly's just in woeful form at the moment, which is the biggest issue. But that's definitely going to be hurting them as well. And it limits what you can do with the captaincy, because most of those are experienced guys who would otherwise come into the conversation.
100%. So before we move on for this game, there are a couple of things we need to get to. One of them is the fact that after this game, Joel Jutke, the referee chief, has been talking to Midi Olympique in the Monday edition of the paper, and he has said that Pascal Gozer on the Sunday after the match said, "Yep, actually, on reflection, I got those wrong." Now, the interesting thing for all these things is the explanation why. Okay, so in Jutke's comments for the first one, so yes, he said time was back on, but Jutke's explanation was it was on him, i.e. Gozer, to make sure that the English had time to reorganize because it was him who'd asked Farrell to gather the players. Okay, so that would be Jutke's referation, and that's something which isn't in the letter of the law. And I think that's very important. That's about managing the game and the event and the players. That's not letter of the law, but the letter of the law is to try. Full stop, right? And in the second one, Jutke's explanation is actually kind of even better, because he goes straight to common sense, as in, if that was given as a knock-on, no one thinks twice. No one thinks twice. And maybe we should be learning for that. And that's paraphrasing really what he's getting there. I kind of like it.
I thought it was a knock-on at first. You know, all the rugby I've watched over the years, to any rugby person, you think it's a knock-on. You know, when you, with the letter of the law and the ambiguity, grey area, and all of that, okay, you can see it. You can, and officials are under pressure at that point, all of them. But it's a knock-on. It looks like a knock-on, doesn't it?
Even before you got to the Louis Rees-Sammy meme face, directly after he did it, they had a close-up of him, and Eddie Butler said, "That's the look of a winger who's just knocked it on." Before we move on, right, we are kind of glossing over something that's very, very important and startling. Wales are on a Grand Slam run, Sean Holley. This did not look likely just a short time ago.
No, it didn't. But we've seen this before from a Welsh team. We really have. And I keep going back to it. We got tough boys. You know, we got boys with character, with a massive experience. And I keep saying it, down that spine: Ken Owens, Alan Wynne-Jones, Faletau and Tipperick, Bigger, Halfpenny, Liam Williams, you know, Jonathan Davis, George North. That spine, you know, you look at the England team, they don't have that. And when the proverbial hits the fan and all the bombs are going off, if you haven't got that core leadership and experience, then things can go wrong. So, you know, that's what they're not playing brilliantly. But hang on, we've scored 8 tries in the last 2 games against Scotland, who were favourites a couple of weeks ago, and England. So we're doing something right, and we are improving. I've looked at the game. We are starting to play with a bit of shape and start to create. We don't beat loads and loads of defenders, but at crucial times we do. And one thing we weren't under Warren Gatland was really clinical. This team in the last couple of weeks has been really clinical. Our goal kicking is immaculate, really, and our defence is getting better, and we're taking our tries. And we're the only team in the Six Nations who hasn't had a yellow card, let alone a red card. So, I mean, you know, that's a pretty decent formula from what I can see. And add to that, for all we say about England, they're going to have a good game in this championship. They're too good. They're too good at players. They're going to bounce back. And they've got to play France. It could be ours even without a Grand Slam. You know what I'm saying?
We'll get to that. They mightn't even get to play France. This could be, as Mike Pullen on Twitter said, the most shit out of Grand Slams ever. Right? We move on. We move on to Italy, where Ireland got back to something approaching form against an Italian team who, again, looked okay at times, but not as okay because they lost Stephen Varney before kickoff, which was very, very annoying for all rugby neutrals. And in fact, I think a lot of Ireland fans, because we've really enjoyed that young halfback partnership. Paul, I'm not going to spend too much time in this game because it's one of those games where you look at some things and you go, yes, but would they have done it against another team? But Ireland did some things involving offloads, which was unusual.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's always hard to tell whether they would be quite as ambitious. But considering how much they'd struggled in attack for the first 2 games, they'd had a lot of ball without really ever threatening. They were much more clinical, which often happens against Italy, sadly, because that seems to be where Italy are their weakest, is kind of defending in their 22. But they were definitely trying things. Obviously, put up nearly half a century of points and had a couple of tries disallowed. So I thought it was very promising. I thought that was Italy's worst performance that we've seen so far. Just unable to really hold on to the ball, which isn't surprising because Ireland have been so good on the deck. But and losing Varney, I don't know. That feels like one of the bigger drop-offs in terms of, which is crazy to think because he's 19 and doesn't even play for his club. But it does feel like Italy were just completely out of sorts and Ireland took full advantage. And yeah, it makes for some interesting questions, I think, for the Scotland game.
I'll interject for 1 second. Kieran O'Callaghan, I need to say we are going to discuss Pro 14 tonight, and we will not continue the Welsh loving for St. David's Day ad infinitum. But Paul, you're right. We did see some interesting stuff from Ireland, but again, the question is, how good are Italy? And I think Italy were better in the first couple of games, but they have shipped a lot of points in this championship, and sooner or later we kind of need to hope that they start pulling it together. Sean, what would you take from that game from a coaching perspective, looking at that Ireland side?
I've been saying it a long time. Pick more Leinster players. That's I said it from the start, haven't I, mate? I've said it. Play Leinster against Italy. Play Leinster, and you'd get a better result. And I don't say that flippantly because Leinster is so good, and they used to play one of the add tag burn to that, and one or two others, of course. I am being flippant, but it's no surprise that the back line clicked. Johnny Sexton looked relaxed and comfortable because he's got guys around him who he plays week in, week out with, and they clicked at times. I still think they left some points out there. Paul said it. I really do. I don't think this Italy side on the back foot is very good at all. I looked at the game and did some analysis on their defense. Their front fives were really slow getting back, leaving holes and dog legs and easy. Like James Lowe's try, you go and watch that from 3 phases back. Have a look at Connors' try. It's quite soft, and that's the worrying thing. I think they might have been spending some time on their attack because they're looking to attack short sides, and they are getting some purchase down there. Monte Ioane is the 4th highest meters maker in the Six Nations. But, so they're getting the ball wide to him, but you've got to stop the 40 points that are coming your way as well, haven't you? And when you look at the better sides, they do that. So, I still think Ireland got a way to go. I really do. I think he's got to consider who he's picking and the combinations he's picking. That's obviously vital. Eddie Jones is getting that wrong at the moment. He's not picking form players. He's picking players who haven't had games. And Farrell's probably working that out now. I would imagine so. So long way to go. Italy, disappointing. I hope they don't turn up in a couple of weeks against Wales. But I still think Wales have too much.
I think that's fairly likely. Ian Gilbert, thank you for this. My commiserations to Italy, England, and Andy's hairdresser. There's going to have to be action taken at some point. We're almost there. We're almost at that point. It looks much worse from behind, I'll tell you that. We will move on to the game that wasn't. Hold on. One more question. Paul Eddison, you come in here.
I was just going to say, did you see Johnny Sexton's quotes afterwards about Craig Casey?
Yes.
Because they were absolutely crazy. Basically saying his attitude is what I imagine Johnny Wilkinson to be like, and he's the only player I've ever seen like that. Which is just, Craig Casey seems like he's going to be a great player, but I thought that said a lot about kind of a guy who's played 20 minutes of Test rugby, that Johnny Sexton was willing to go and be quite so effusive in his praise, which is rare for Johnny, shall we say.
Okay, here's one I want to spend a minute on that I had not planned to, right? But I can absolutely see an argument for Casey and Sexton for a reason like that, because you are bringing in somebody who has a stellar reputation already behind the scenes, who shows obvious maturity beyond his years, quite apart from the speed of his pass and his runs and what he gives in terms of energy around the pitch. And you give him test match time with Johnny Sexton. You don't wheel him out with Billy Burns or any of the other Burns involved, right? Or anybody else. You give him time with one of the greatest out-halves Irish rugby has ever had, and perhaps the best. Sorry, Munster fans, there is a debate. We'll have that at a different time when Johnny retires, right? But I saw those quotes too. I think it's incredibly exciting if you're a Munster fan And if you're an Irish fan, I think genuinely this is a guy we could see 80 to 100 caps if the injury gods smile benevolently. Right, that's my soapbox moment done. COVID, we thought we would not get through this championship without COVID stuff going on. We thought we were having a pretty good run. Then France happened. This is not good. And when we were recording last week, we had just got the news that I think they were up to 11 cases in camp, including the coaching team, by the time we recorded last Monday night. They took the decision to postpone the game, Scotland against France. But Paul, one of the things I think we need to bring people up to date with is just how big a mess this is in France. So, for example, when you open the French Rugby Twice Weekly Media Link Peak, I think it's like the first 7 pages are completely dedicated to this story and the ins and outs. Go.
Yeah, I mean, they'd already done a big thing on Friday saying we wanted to be talking about the France-Scotland game, and instead they had to talk about kind of what was going on. L'Équipe have been brilliant kind of covering this all week. They've had lots of the kind of the news through the week. So Galtier going to watch his son play for the Espoir, for Colombier Espoir against Stade Francais. And then there were also images of the players who'd gone for waffles in Rome after the game in Rome. So their approach to the bubble's obviously been very different. Part of the issue seems to be it's quite loose in terms of what the actual rules are. There's a lot about kind of having to take X number of tests a week or whatever, which they're doing, but there's not so much on exactly how you can stay in and where you can go and what you're allowed to do. So that's more on kind of each individual country managed to, like they have there've been a couple of things which they probably haven't been able to do, but it's actually just the management. And as much as it's easy to go for Galtier for kind of going out and watching his son or the players, you probably need to look higher up. And I mean, Serge Simon, who's the vice president, is also the COVID manager, and he's the one who's being criticised a lot in France. I know in the English press, it's been a lot of focus on Galtier, who's obviously a much bigger name, but it's a bigger issue. It's hit the French men's senior 15s team, the French men's 7s team, the women's 7s team, and the under 20s. So only the women's 15s so far who've emerged unscathed, and that points to bigger issues beyond just kind of one coach who's gone rogue sort of thing. So yeah, there's massive issues, and they were hoping that they'd be able to play that Sunday game, and then they had one training session, and then another person came down, and suddenly you've got everyone who's a contact case. So it's a big issue, and let's hope at least that the COVID side is over and that the players will be able to come back. But in terms of how it's affected the championship, that's going to run and run, I think.
Yeah, and there's probably going to be calls for, well, should France be kicked out of the championship? Well, it isn't that France would be kicked out by the Six Nations. It's actually, Megan Roberts in the comments section, should France be kicked out for breaking COVID restrictions? Right. So here's the thing. It won't be that. If we do get France not playing in this championship, it'll be because the French government says, lads, you have dropped the ball in a major way, because there's some of the background which we mightn't get is that the French Six Nations men's rugby team were given an exemption by the French government to be able to participate in the Six Nations, provided they held up their part of the bargain and implemented really strict protocols. Now, we use the term bubble, as Paul has eloquently explained. Bubble means different things in different places. Probably the only true bubble going on in sports is like the NBA did when they went down and just locked everyone into one complex and you weren't allowed to leave. That's a bubble, okay? Otherwise, we call it bubbles. It's not a bubble. Okay, it's a lot of protocols. And they were then, by doing this, they could then be held up as, here's a way you can do this. Okay, they've dropped the ball so massively and told different stories at different times, including multiple different patient zeros, right? If you were in government, you'd be royally pissed off. So that is the big problem that people like Galtier, people like Laporte are having to sort out now in writing, in proper formal letters. So, like Paul, this is going to be messy. It's beautifully French, And what's your gut feeling on it?
Well, interestingly, in the Midi Olympic today, their feeling from the sports ministry was that they probably wouldn't be kicked out, just because, although in theory they can do that, it's probably not in their interests. I also would be surprised from a Six Nations point of view. I don't think any of the Six Nations want 28-0s and forfeits, because all these countries are on their knees in terms of finances. I mean, we just had a year when no one could have any fans in. Like, the last thing they want is to be able to throw away an international game. Like the game, well, the TV money from that alone is just, that's the sort of money you can't lose. So yes, from a sporting point of view, 28-0 will be absolutely fair. But I think people who are hoping for that are probably going to be disappointed, because the games need to be played. The teams need the money from those matches to be played. And let's be honest, as rugby fans, yes, sportingly, it would be probably frustrating if France don't get any punishment for this, but I'd still rather watch them play against Scotland, because that's got the potential to be quite a fun game, to be honest.
Does. Here. We'll end on that, and we'll move from Six Nations land to Guinness PRO14 land, because there was lots going on. There were some really good games here. We'll have to zip through some of this because we're 40 minutes deep. We'll start in order. Friday night, Benetton and Connacht.
Heartbreak
For Benetton.
Heartbreak Hotel.
Bundy Aki, he saved his best for last. We will show a bit that's not so good as part of a try, but he saved his best for last, and he got them over the line. 19-17, Connacht win out there. A cracking Leo Sarto try that I think will
a gloveless
yeah.
Leo Sarto try. Have a look at this. This is an athletic runner, if ever you saw one. Look at a little swerve of the hips. He just looks over and he knows there, 30 out, that he's going in. It's a lovely try. It's great to see. And they probably were thinking at that point, Connacht down, yellow card, take the lead before half time. Here's our chance to get the win. But yeah, you never write any of these teams off in the Guinness PRO14, and they can't buy a win. I feel sorry for them, because they're having good parts in games, and they've got guys like this. They're playing well. Look at it. He's 60 meters.
He's in, and he goes around. Bundy does a full 360. He does a full 360, and he says, "Sod it, Leo is gone. He's gone."
You know those things, right? When you look at assistant referees, if you watch the assistant referee, it's like he's running backwards. A bit like Johnny May up against Lewis Rees-Zammit at the end with the interception. How much was Lewis Rees-Zammit leaving him? But this guy's got gas, and but it wasn't enough in the end. And
it wasn't. It's unfortunate, but look, we're getting a little more out of Benetton now in recent weeks than we were at the start of the season, and I include the hockey and Scarlets in that. Munster, good win away at Cardiff. Still the Blues for now, 20 points to 11. And I'm just going to zip on to Ulster Ospreys, 21-7. Someone was working. Someone called Sean.
I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was the greatest of games, but you look at the two sides on paper, you think, oh, this could be a bit of a thumping for.
That was a hell of a team that Ulster named for a game when there was a Six Nations weekend.
And a hell of a bench, And I'm thinking, oh, they had Balakoon coming back, Sean Reedy, Eric O'Sullivan, all these guys on the bench, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be tough. And the Ospreys came out. They did Toby Booth really proud. They got the lead, but they couldn't score again. They didn't have enough firepower, so they hung in there. And Ulster sort of then McCloskey put his foot on the pedal a bit in the second half. Sean Reedy came on. We nearly named him man of the match for 40 minutes. He was that impactful, and they got the grips with it. They had a lucky breakaway try just for half time. Otherwise, it could have been different, but they missed out. They did on the bonus point. Rob Little, I think, scored 2 or 3 tries that were disallowed. Bless him, 3 it was, wasn't it? Yeah, and good finishes. 2 of them were brilliant finishes, and they were disallowed. So sometimes you get what you deserve, and that's not enough now, is it? They have to beat Leinster with a bonus point, stop Leinster getting anything, and finish with more bonus points. I think it's done.
It's over.
Yeah, we're kind of gone. I'm not letting you away with this. What happened just before Ulster got that breakaway try at the end of the first half?
Remind me.
Ospreys were about to go three halves without.
I knew it when I was saying it. I was trying to put it back in my mouth, and I sort of said, it was like what, a minute at half time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 3 minutes because I have to go from the gantry down to do pitch side at half time. So the producer says, right, Sean, can you leave? Look at the right, it's 37 minutes. I'm watching it. I'm going behind the stand in the Kingsbank, and I can see through the windows because there's no crowd. I've still got the commentary in my ear, and all I can hear is Mark Robson going, "Oh no," and I'm thinking, you're kidding me. I just said this could be 3 halves of rugby where the Ospreys don't concede any points. Next thing you know, Cooney scoring.
Cooney scoring, and the Under the Sticks WhatsApp group lights up, my friends.
Yes.
But it happens to the best. I'm just going to keep you on point here now. Edinburgh Scarlets. We're going to run some tape from this one because that was a game. That was a game that deserved to kick off a Six Nations Saturday.
Well, it was ding dong, and the thing is about this game, right, and is that it was great to watch. It was ding dong and, tries either end, nip and tuck. But even though it was like a 26-25 or 26-27, whatever it ended, there wasn't a point scored in the last 20 minutes. That shows you they've got to a point where it's like a bit like a boxing match. It's like, well, they're not going to throw any punches anymore because in case we lose. But some of the tries, that's Tyler Morgan going over. Lovely play. Shows what the Scarlets are capable of, and they've been coming back. What was interesting was that Johnny McNichol, 5 offloads, lots of carries and a try. Look at this finish. If he's back to his best, Scarlets will be ticking. So looking forward to a Rainbow Cup, drier pitches and weather where the Scarlets can play some open rugby. But Edinburgh, Cockers, there were 36 defenders beaten by Edinburgh and only 5 by the Scarlets. And guess who won? It was something
it's an extraordinary stat differential in a game. You can sometimes get weird ones like that, actually, when a team spends a lot of time deep in their own territory, running kicks back, and they beat defenders. You can get weird ones, but this wasn't a game like that.
No, territory and possession massively in their favour. Seeing Jaco van der Wal break there. He played really well, actually, with ball in hand, which was probably good news for Gregor Townsend. This guy got in my Holley's heroes. There's only a couple on losing sides, but Pierce Scoom and the loose set played 80 minutes and was really industrious. Steph Evans, you can't keep him out of the game. Look at this. And herring up his young Dane Blacker. Killer blow, really, just after half time. But they never go away, the Scarlets, when they're in this sort of mood. They're dangerous away from home. So, yeah, I think Cockers will absolutely be seething, to let that one slip. It hasn't been a great season, and then you lose these ones. And here's the final score now. Edinburgh get the try. Look at the clock. It's 60 minutes, and then there's no other score then for the last 20 minutes. So it was a real arm wrestle in the last 20. But fair play to Scarlets.
Yeah. I was impressed by the defence in the last last 20, but particularly kind of that last passage. Edinburgh kind of looked like they were working their way up into position to get the drop goal, and then kind of 5-6 phases later, they were 40 metres out again, and that had gone. I don't think Van der Walt really wanted the drop goal. He never seemed to be in position for it. He kind of looked like he was happy to just drop into the line and get a little bit closer. But, the Scarlets were so clean. There was not even a hint of kind of a call for a penalty or anything like that, and they just forced them back. And, yeah, that was huge because, that almost decides Europe, doesn't it, in terms of kind of, well, depending on what happens. But no, I was impressed with the Scarlets, and yeah, as you say, a cracker of a game.
Very good. Ollie Hughes chipping in here. The best Pro 14 Scarlets Edinburgh was the best Pro 14 game I've ever seen. It was electrifying. It was very, very good.
See, what happens is on a big Six Nations weekend, then people don't watch. Sometimes a lot of people don't watch the Guinness Pro 14 games, but there are lots of great games, good rugby going on. It's it's a good league. It doesn't get the credit it deserves, and that just goes to show that game there in a different way. The Ulster Ospreys game was really enjoyable. Young players fronting up against experienced international players. It has it all, and that was classic Edinburgh Scarlets.
Over to Italy, Zebra against Dragons. I didn't watch this game, so I'll be honest with the audience. But I tuned in with 10 minutes to go because something really interesting was happening. Because Zebra were absolutely going to beat the Dragons, and what was going to happen then? They were going to go all the way from 6th, go over the Dragons and over Glasgow into 4th in Conference A, which is a thing. It is a big thing. Even though we have two teams, hockey and everyone, as in Leinster and Ulster, you still have Zebra getting up into 4th place. I don't care about the games in hand because you saw what happened with Glasgow's one, which we will get to very shortly. But in the honour of Paul Williams, who is not here, go Zebra.
Yeah, and thoroughly deserved. It has to be said. I spoke to Jamie Roberts yesterday. He said the Dragons they didn't deserve anything. They were poor. It's a big setback for Dean Ryan. But Zebra, oh God, their back row was immense. Huge work rate, huge effort. Pierre Bruno on the wing, real thorn in the side. These are names that the regular viewer won't know, but go and check them out. They got some good players, and don't forget all the Italy boys are away. And you got some decent players in that. But Ross Moriarty was back. Ben Fry's been on fire. Jonah Holmes got a couple of tries. Jordan Williams, Rodri Williams, Sam Davis. They got players in their midst, and thoroughly deserved it. Go Zebra.
Go Zebra. On our very unbiased podcast. Can I just say, I'm scanning, I'm seeing the comment section for the entire show, and there's lads still going back and forth about the bloody knock on. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Just having a private fight about the knock on.
Lads, go for it. This is why we're here. We'd be doing it in the pub if we were allowed to go to it, so let's do it here. Right, we rounded off the weekend, and I really liked having this 5:30 kickoff on the Sunday of Six Nations weekend. Yes, Leinster scored 40 points. They got the bonus point win against Glasgow. There's some more subtle things to talk about in this game, but we'll talk about a very unsubtle one straight away, which was an Adam Hastings red card, because this was very, very clumsy. Paul, what was your first reaction when you saw this?
Well, it was one that I'd seen it mentioned on Twitter because I didn't catch it at the time. But then I'd kind of been led to believe that, he completely lost his balance. And I thought we just must have been caught in the air. But you watch it back, it's such a strange one. I remember Lee Byrne used to be one who would get so high and he'd often have his leg out. And you'd always think, that looks quite dangerous. But this one he's basically almost on the ground again by the time his leg pops up. Like, I'm sure he's obviously not going for Kelleher intentionally, that's for sure, but it just looks so awkward and such a strange one. And players do it a lot to protect themselves, but when you don't really jump very high, it looks incredibly dangerous, and you put yourself in quite a dangerous position with regards to the refereeing. And I don't think you'd have too many complaints, to be honest.
We'll see if he employs the Xander Fagerson team to represent him. But I've made that joke already on Twitter. I'm not going to redo it. Sean, there was a lot to take out from this game if you're Glasgow, I say, because when they lost the man, they were in danger of getting absolutely mullered. And then they came out 14 men away to this Leinster team. And look, we know there's 2, maybe 3 Leinster teams that could compete very effectively in this league. We know that. We said it before. But you have Scott Penny on fire. We'll get to that. But Glasgow came out and scored 14 points in the first 10 minutes of that second half. And it didn't end there. They were very, very good until about 10 minutes to go when they ran out of steam. I would be taking a lot from that if I'm a Danny Wilson and a Glasgow fan.
Yeah, and it might give Danny an indication of how some of his players want to play as well. Sometimes things happen for a reason, don't they? And that's an unfortunate incident. Dan Evans of the Ospreys, happened to him, last year. And I used to coach Lee Byrne, Paul, as you know, and we talk about that. If you can bend your leg and get your knee up and your elbow out and your hips facing, then all your bony parts are protecting you. Be interesting if something like that does happen. Somebody does leap high enough that their knee or elbow catches somebody in the head. I mean, you're jumping for the ball and trying to protect you. But anyway, it's unfortunate. And then in adversity, out come the players. It's strange, isn't it? 14 men. Look at Ireland against Wales. Nearly came back and won it. There's something with this human nature of how you sort of rally yourself, and it's a different challenge, and you rise to the occasion. I'm pleased for Danny in the performance, but it looks awful, the table at the moment, and he'd be coming under a lot of pressure, I would imagine.
He will. Your pose is very good if you're looking back on video. If you haven't looked back on video, go, because you see the pointy bits. The image, what are you allowed to do in rugby field? You can behave like a goalkeeper in football. That's the way a goalkeeper is taught to go and collect a high ball in the box, to protect themselves, right, and to stop someone charging in at you. You're allowed to do the same thing in rugby. You can stick your knee out like that. That is fine, right? You are not allowed to put your studs out, because it's your responsibility what hits them, right? That's the end of it.
It's poor technique from Adam, isn't it?
It's weird
poor technique because he's got his leg up and he's tilted back. He hasn't maintained his centre of mass to go forward and up. It's just poor technique. Cost him.
Some good stuff from Leinster, Paul, as we kind of always end up saying. But you run out of some superlatives when you look at the kind of performances that they put together.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of week after week, it seems to be the same thing. I was trying to find who it was, because someone had an incredible stat about Penny, I think, now has as many Leinster tries as Jordan Lama in about 32 games fewer, which I don't know what that says about anything, but just insane in terms of kind of he's obviously playing every week in these teams that are smashing everyone, but the number of back rowers who are just coming off the conveyor belt is ridiculous. I mean, Will Connors was probably done out of a man of the match performance in Rome, and he might not even be in the Ireland 2015 for Scotland. And Penny,
okay, I have a theory about the Will Connors man of the match and why Tyke Byrne got it.
Is it the scrum caps?
Two lads playing in the Irish back row that look a bit lanky, and they're both wearing blue scrum caps. If you reckoned your man was the one making it, then he was your man all day long, right?
Yeah,
I reckon something there. We are going to go to the tables because we have some big games coming up this weekend. Conference A, Leinster played 13, 60 points. Ulster played 13, 54 points. That gap is now very, very important. Ospreys in third, played 13, 31. In fourth, Zebre. This is not a drill. Played 13, 17 points. Glasgow and Dragons have a game in hand each, and they're at 16 and 15 points, respectively. We move on. Conference B. Munster played 13, very safe, 50 points. Connacht played 13, 41 points. They play each other this weekend. We'll get to the fixtures in a minute. Scarlets played 14, 34 points. Cardiff Blues Rugby 14, 26. Edinburgh and Benetton both played 12 points. That's where the similarity ends. Edinburgh 20, Benetton still with just 6 points on the season. Right. Fixtures. Here's the bottom line from this weekend. We have 5 games. We have... That doesn't seem to be right. Come on, roll it on. Oh, there we go. Munster Connacht, 7:35 p.m. Thomond Park, Limerick. Munster win. That's it. That is all she wrote. Okay, that's the end of days. Into Saturday, Zebre against Glasgow.
Ooh.
This now becomes a very spicy game out of nowhere. This is fantastic. And it just kicks off our Saturday. We might move on to Ospreys against Dragons. Nice little Welsh regional affair. At the Brewery Field in Bridgend. Yeah. Sean, what's the Brewery Field in Bridgend? I have never been. Describe it to me in 1 minute.
It's Bridgend's ground. It's where Bridgend Rugby Club play. It goes back to what Simon was saying earlier about embracing the region. They take a game there. And it's a great field, you know, played there myself. It's a nice little stadium. They've done a lot of work there. and it's right in the heart of the Bridgend town. So it's a real good place to go and a real good place to play.
Another good place to go, Kingspan Stadium in Belfast, Ulster against Leinster. This now becomes very simple again. Leinster win, that's it. In fact, it doesn't even have to be a Leinster win, as Sean has already alluded to, but let's keep it nice and simple. Leinster and Munster win, that will essentially seal a final at the RDS on March 27th. Final game of the weekend, Edinburgh against Benetton, the crucial 5th, 6th place game at BT Murrayfield. I really hope that Benetton come to play again like they did last weekend and pull something here. I really, really want them to get something in these last few weeks of this season. It's the soft team.
I can't see Edinburgh losing 2 weeks at home in a row after that Scarlets game. We should say, Anne, that there's no Blue Scarlets game. That's the missing fixture because that was a rearranged fixture that we squeezed in a few weeks ago, if you remember.
I remember you working very hard as part of the scheduling committee on that. Well done, Sean. Take all the credit while it's going. Paul Eddison, you're now part of the announcement for the second Loch Lomond Whiskies Coach of the Month. This is the edition for February.
How exciting!
Excuse me while I refill my glass from this 12-year-old single malt. Just need a little break here. That's the sound of 12-year-old single malt hitting my glass. The 4 nominees for the Loch Lomond Whiskies February Coach of the Month are Andy Friend, Connacht. He's a repeat on this list. Glenn Delaney, Scarlets. Dan McFarland, Ulster. And Johan Van Gran from Munster. We're not going to drain this one in terms of making our pitches, but we can flag, and I can't go into too much detail yet, but it will be released. There will be a change to the voting to include fans and myself, Paul Williams, and Holley. I think we have a say now.
I'm so excited.
I don't know what we're going to do with this. We
have to vote. We have to pitch and vote, don't we? Based on the facts.
Are we sure we're incorruptible?
Oh, I'm totally non-corruptible. You on the fence. Williams, easy target. If you want to corrupt Williams, that's too easy. And give him a free baseball cap or a packet of coffee, and he'll swing your way.
Okay, so because Paul isn't here, I'm going to make you talking about each coach individually because we're not getting away with that, apparently, says producer. Right. So
okay.
for February, okay, let's say give you 30 seconds on each. Make the case for each, Sean Holley, in your multi-personality disorder self. Okay.
Connacht first. Andy Friend nominated for last month as well. Very close. His side really are doing well and have done well in February. 3 wins out of 3, 2 of which are away from home. The squeaky win out in Benetton was showing character, and then a real good win at Rodney Parade, bonus point there. So Glenn Delaney at the Scarlets has turned his Scarlets' fortunes around after a real miserable Christmas. Back-to-back defeats to regional rivals. The Blues have won 2 out of 2 in February. A bonus point demolition of Benetton, but then that fantastic win up in Edinburgh. Ulster, well, Dan McFarland's men have really challenged Leinster all the way, right down to the wire. Again, 2 wins out of 2, a good win, difficult win up in Glasgow last week. Beat the Ospreys eventually after a sticky first half. And so in reflection, his season has been really good, but it's been a decent month for him. And Johan Van Gran, the same. How can you be top of Conference B and still go under the radar? Munster are very difficult to beat. They're on a winning run. And they've had 2 away wins in February. Edinburgh away comfortably, and you could say quite comfortably against the Blues. Cardiff Rugby last weekend. So good candidates, all unbeaten in the month of February. The only difference being Connacht have played 3 and the other teams have played 2.
Okay, Paul Eddison, we're fast forwarding to next week. You have the deciding vote. Who are you picking?
Well, unlike you guys, I'm very much corruptible, and having in a past life relied a lot on Glenn Delaney to help me with Nottingham reports, where he'd speak to me every Friday or every Saturday morning after they played on a Friday night, and he was basically the nicest bloke in rugby. And also they were brilliant against Edinburgh. I'm going to go with him.
I can go with that. I'm going to file this away for next week. Glenn Delaney, nice guy, says Paul. Right. We will move on to the last couple of things. We have been looking at comments coming in during the show. We don't play them in as much as we used to because we save them up for the end. So super producer Adam Redmond will be listing a couple of those very shortly. Super Rugby Aotearoa came back. I was so happy. I was so happy getting up, and here we go. Chiefs girl, welcome, Chiefs girl. Super Rugby was good on the weekend. Some awesome tries scored. Are you guys going to do a watch along now? Rugby Pass has the TV rights.
If Adam pays for it. Not us. Just pays for the subscrition. We'll do it for free.
We need yes, we need some to underwrite some of this. No watch along, no money for watch alongs, no money for subs. Okay, yeah. Do you know what? We'll dodge that one for a minute, but I really enjoyed watching those games. I didn't get up at 6 a.m. I just made sure I didn't get on Twitter, and I stuck the laptop on in the kitchen watching the games. And Paul, I was just smiling. It was great rugby.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the highlights of 2020, wasn't it? And I think when we suddenly thought we weren't going to be able to watch any of it in this year, that was going to be a struggle. But no, it was very good. And not quite so much that Super Rugby Australia. Well, one of those two games was rather one-sided, but yeah, Super Rugby Aotearoa was great fun this weekend.
Yeah, we've oh wow, there are so many comments tonight. We've not got access to any before 9:40 p.m. Wow. The buffer has actually overflowed. Interesting. Well done, folks. I blame the knock-on conversation, frankly. But anyway, look, you know what you've done. Sean, it was good, not just because it was crowds, but some of the quality of rugby was absolutely superb.
Well, I sort of tweeted business as usual, and the Crusaders raced to 14. It was like, oh wow, how can you keep doing it? But fair play to Highlanders. Came back. It's just the injection of pace and the skills they execute at that pace, isn't it? We watch a lot of rugby, and then you get the chance to see that after a while. Bang! It sort of smacks you in the face a little bit, and crowds and atmosphere. It does make a difference, doesn't it? So I really enjoyed it. I'm with Paul on the Australian stuff. The Reds look pretty strong, although they had a squeak. Waratahs, what's happening there? But I'm really excited about this week's games because we've got a game, and the other coaches have a game under their belt. You know what I mean? So, for example, now they've got something to work with. All right, we've seen where we are. We've seen where the opposition are. They got some tape. So this week's going to be great. I think they're going to be close games this weekend, which would be awesome.
Any initial thoughts on some of the law variations they're trialing?
I quite like the dropout from the in goal. Held up. I quite like that one. So if you get held up and that, you can drop out off your goal line now, don't you? Sort of encourages find some space to score, to get it down, rather than Exeter, dare I say, Leinster style, bundle it over. So yeah, I'd be coaching to get bodies and on top, stop the TMOC in it, so we get the held up call. That's the one I like.
Okay. Okay, we're getting into this now. Comments and questions. Reviewy McReview face. As a rookie rugby fan, this knock-on controversy has been very educational. I couldn't figure out why the announcers were so annoyed in the moment. I'm going to say that Reviewy McReviewy face is from the States due to the use of the words announcers. Welcome, my friend. Yeah. There are lots of rules in rugby, and you can get really detailed about them. And if you really want to get educated, look at some of the long form disciplinary decisions that actually get published. It is insane. Next comment.
Oh, he's from Canada. Ugh.
There you go. Cathal Sheehan. A knock-on occurs when a player... This is what I was talking about. This is why we don't have access to any comments pre-9:40 tonight. A knock-on occurs when a player loses possession of the ball and it goes forward, or when a player hits the ball forward with the hand or arm, or when the ball hits the hand or arm and goes forward, and more writing after that. Look, we know what we saw. Joel Jutge agrees. We had to try really hard to understand what we saw. We overthought it. Harley Worthy, damn, we missed the comment about how to stop Scott Penny. Sean Holley, how do you stop Scott Penny?
You don't. I was speaking highly of him right from the start, wasn't I? I was lucky enough to see him in some British and Irish Cup games, and so you get a bit of an eye for a player. But my goodness, they played him at 8. You can play him anywhere. Play him in the centre if you want. In fact, they did the other week when they got a yellow card. So this guy, for me, it's a bit like when Will Connors first hit the scene. You're like, oh my God. So they are just blessed. He's just got that tenacious carrying, can't stop him, low center of gravity. Very brave guy, very powerful. Almost like a who's the guy on the bench for England? The Ben Earl, is it? He's very similar to him in stature and play, quick and dynamic. Where do you fit him in? Where do you fit him in the Ireland team? Where do you fit him in the Leinster team? Should he be playing for Connacht?
Don't. We're not getting into that tonight.
Pull a grenade and throw it.
It's too late for that. Ewan Davies, sir. Ewan Davies, if anyone is doubting emotional commitment of Southern Hemisphere when they qualify for residency, look at the Halaholo video on YouTube with his family reaction when he gets told by the WalesOnline Facebook page. I've seen that. It's really nice. Yeah, I like it.
He was really good again.
Yeah,
he was.
He's eager. It's still weird that he's 30. That's still weird to me. I didn't think honestly, it wasn't in my head that he was that old. It's just now he is what he is. Okay. Sean, what's the skinny on the new Ospreys CEOs?
Do you know, I'm a bit slow on this one. Only because I've been so busy with the Six Nations. So they've appointed a new CEO, Nick Garcia. Formerly had a role with Manchester City, so has a high commercial resume for professional sport. Clearly has a business acumen and a track record. James Davis Yendall, the new owner, I think he's an acquaintance, so clearly wouldn't bring a guy in at this level if you didn't know a lot about him, done your due diligence. And I just think it's exciting times for the Ospreys. I think this is forward thinking. They're trying to bring outside acumen and still with a family flavour, because James is a local boy who's gone away and done well in business. And I think they are mindful that modern professional sports needs, to coin a phrase, a kick up the 80s. So it's a lot now about what we're doing now. We are touching audiences online. We're impacting on social media. We have to invest a lot of information technology in that department to gain new fans, followers, get our social media, get good news stories out there in different ways. That's the way it is. And younger fans deal in YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok. And these guys are in that sort of level of thinking, commercial acumen that is going to attempt to bring in different funding to the Ospreys, which is needed to keep up with everybody else, which they haven't got. There's no major business in Swansea and Neath and Bridgend. There's no major sort of commercial business, if you like. We've got a steelworks in Port Talbot, and we've got a few bits and bobs, but we're not a capital city down here. So I think it's a positive move. We've got to embrace it, and see how it goes.
Okay. What does Andy look like when he sees a good stat? I love a good stat. So a good one from Simon Gleave, actually. Oh yeah, hold on. You throw this one up. That's exactly what I look like. Love it. So a good one from Simon Gleave, Paul. He was reviewing the Wales-England match. Wales did not kick, apart from penalties, they did not intentionally kick the ball to touch in the entire game.
Yeah, that was clearly a tactic, wasn't it? I guess they know that they're probably not going to be winning much English ball. And I mean, their own lineup's been a bit of a struggle, although it improved. I was actually quite impressed by their maul. It ended up setting up the field position for the Farrell penalty and then the Adams try, and then they had another one in the build up to what ended up being the first Sheedy penalty. But yeah, they clearly had decided they were going to kick deep, but put pressure on. Italy 2 weeks ago, obviously, kicked deep and then just let England run back at them. But Reece Zammit in particular, kind of challenging for those high balls, caused all sorts of problems. I was so impressed with his chasing, and Josh Adams does that as well. And that really did seem to affect England. They gave away a penalty at one point from a knock on. They lost some possession that way, and yeah, they'd clearly done their homework on that, and it paid off in spades.
It did. Kieran O'Callaghan. Farewell to Billy Holland, who announced his retirement at the end of the season today. Billy Holland, not often know, he's actually at least 47 years old and first played for Munster in 1983. That's how long he's been trucking. But he is their second most caps for Munster. That's Billy Holland. We'll go into him a little bit more, I think, in next week's show. Folks, we are done. That was a good show. Paul Eddison, welcome and thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Really good to have you. Sean Holley, thank you. Simon Thomas, thanks for joining us at the start of the show. If you didn't catch the start, go back and get some education from Sean and Simon talking about the Cardiff Blues becoming Cardiff Rugby and all of the backstory and hopefully solid future story to that. Thank you, Adam Redmond, pulling the strings in the background as always. That was Under the Sticks, brought to you by PRO14 Rugby. Thank you everyone out there. My name's Andy McGeady. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
They call me cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. Ooh, cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. I love my cheetah.